We often talk about art and beauty as if they're luxuries, something we turn to when everything else is done. But what if creative expression isn't ornamental? What if it's actually regulatory? What if it is biological? As a psychologist, I'm trained to look for evidence. And what's fascinating to me is that the research is increasingly clear. Art, music, awe, and creative expression don't just inspire us emotionally, they shift our physiology. They regulate our nervous systems. And today I want to share what the science actually says about art and healing and why this matters, especially for gifted women. Welcome to the Power to Flourish podcast, where science meets the art of a beautiful life. I'm Dr. Andrea Line, positive psychologist, giftedness expert and coach, and modern day spiritual godmother to brilliant, deep feeling women. This isn't just another self-help podcast. It's a sanctuary, a sacred space to come back to yourself. Each week, we'll explore the emotional experience of gifted, sensitive women and what it means to live a life that feels as beautiful as it may look. Because flourishing isn't a luxury, it's your birthright, and your life is waiting. This is the Power to Flourish podcast. A few weeks ago, I was so excited to attend an arts and healthcare symposium here in my hometown of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And it was so energizing for me because I have been passionate about integrating the arts, not just in my personal life, but in my professional work throughout my career. In fact, as early as my early to mid 20s, I was dreaming of one day creating a therapeutic program or a school that would incorporate the arts into everything we did there. And fast forward, I actually had this beautiful opportunity later in my career. I didn't create a school from scratch, but I did sort of take over the helm at a certain point. And one of the first priorities I did was I hired a new, really creative, thinking outside the box art teacher. And I told her, you have free reign. I basically told her to integrate everything she did with our academic program, our therapeutic program, our residential program. I just wanted the arts in every form to be woven into everything and not just be this sort of standalone thing on the side. So I share all of that because I've been swimming in the sea recently. I met so many interesting people with this shared passion. And it was just so cool to be in a space where you had neuroscientists, researchers, medical doctors, different kinds of therapists, occupational therapists, dance therapists, art therapists, and then, of course, artists all in the same room. It was so fun. It was like both parts of my brain were getting to be, turned on by what was being shared there. So that experience a few weeks ago inspired me to do this episode. And I have a feeling I will probably be doing a few more on this topic because I also have just been deep diving into the research on how art affects our brain, our mental health, our well-being, and I'm just so excited. So today we're not going to go into all of that, but I do want to share with you a few core ideas and studies that I just think are fascinating. And if you don't know about these things, I want you to grab hold of them today and think about how does this impact what you're doing in your day-to-day life and who can you share this with? Because although, yes, I am speaking with gifted women, this research applies to all people, male, female, young, old, across the board. The arts are so important. So one of the studies that really stayed with me, I'm actually going through a book. It's called Your Brain on Art, How the Arts Transform Us by Susan Magsamen. I hope I'm saying that right. And Ivy Ross. I actually got this book about a year ago at the bookstore at the Tanglewood Center, which is the home spot of the Boston Symphony in the Berkshires where I used to live. And this book just stood out to me. I had to get it, and I'm telling you, it's dense because it has lots of really meaty stuff in it, but it's so good. Anyway, one of the studies in this book that I read about looked at mothers experiencing postnatal depression. Now, that is a topic that I think many women are familiar with today. Probably many of you have either experienced something like this or you have a friend, you know someone who did. And researchers divided them into 3 groups. So one group received the standard postnatal care, another received standard care plus social support groups, and then a third group participated in a structured 10-week singing program designed specifically for mothers with postnatal depression. They also got the standard postnatal care, which again, for a lot of women who have just given birth, if they're breastfeeding, if they're suffering from depression, there's this tension because they may not necessarily want to take an antidepressant for lots of different reasons. And so this window of time is just so important for mom and baby. And especially after witnessing my daughter give birth last year, and that vulnerable window of time after you give birth it's just really important that we take care of moms and their mental health. So this study, what they found was remarkable. The women in the singing group, now remember, you had one group that got standard care, another group got the standard care plus social support groups, and then the third group got this 10-week singing program. The women in the singing group recovered from their depression on average about a month earlier than the other groups. Isn't that crazy? And when researchers looked more closely, they found measurable reductions in cortisol. That's the body's primary stress hormone when these women sang. So these mothers who are in this program get training basically on how to, I don't know the details of the program, but basically how to sing to your baby. There was also data to point to an increase in perceived closeness between mother and infant. In other words, the singing didn't just lift the mood, it shifted the physiology of both mother and infant. It regulated the nervous systems and it strengthened the bonding. And here is what is important. Let's just keep in mind, these are not professional singers. These are not musicians. These are regular, everyday women who have given birth and who are struggling. Their skill did not matter. This was not like a singing class to become a professional singer. This was a program helping and supporting moms to sing to their little babies. And what mattered was the act of embodied, rhythmic, expressive engagement. Now, I have to say, personal side note, when my granddaughter was born last year, do you know what I did? And even today whenever I see her, I instinctively, now I do love singing and I'm a singer, but I just sang to her. I was making up songs. It felt like every time she was in my arms, I'm just making up another song. I did that sort of instinctively, but not every mom necessarily is going to do that. But I think for me, even though I wasn't the mother, my body wasn't going through all the changes that my daughter's body was going through. And still, when that baby was crying and upset, I felt more regulated when I was singing to her. And in turn, my regulation helped her regulate. It's so beautiful that we're wired this way, isn't it? It's just amazing to me. Keep in mind that many gifted women, we try to regulate ourselves through thinking, do we not? We're in our heads, we're analyzing, we're planning. Raise your hand if when you're planning something, you feel like you're soothing your system. All the planners out there. We try to solve the problem. These are the cognitive ways we're trying to regulate our bodies. But let me just remind you that sometimes the best thing to do is to sing a song. This research reminds us that regulation often happens through our breath, vibration, rhythm, and shared creative experience. It's not just through our cognition. And I would argue, because the results of this study were quite clear, these women who sang recovered a month earlier than the women in the other groups. So let that stick. Okay, the second line of research that's deeply connected to this, that I also am so passionate about, I've been speaking about it and sharing and teaching on it for well over a decade, is the science of awe. AWE. Awe is that feeling you get when you encounter something vast and beautiful. A piece of music that makes your chest expand. I was at the symphony a couple weeks ago and I could feel the vibration in the room and in my body, and it was just like I could feel my chest expand. Have you had that experience? Maybe it's just beholding a landscape in front of you that your jaw drops, your thoughts are silenced, you're just like in the moment. Or maybe you're standing in a museum and there is a work of art that catches your eye and just catches your whole being, and it just feels bigger than you. Researchers have found that experiences of awe are associated with increased vagal tone, which is a marker of nervous system regulation and flexibility. The vagus nerve is the nerve that connects our brain to what many of us call the second brain, which is sort of down in your belly area. And trauma can certainly have an effect on it. There's lots of things that can impact it. But what we want to do is increase the tone. That's what we call it, the vagal tone. And awe has been shown to do that. It's also been linked to reductions in inflammatory markers and decreased self-focused rumination. Can I get an amen? In simple terms, awe widens us, it expands us, it shifts us out of like that psychological constriction where you just feel, you just feel like small and stuck. And this is so good. It interrupts our obsessive self-focus. Now, of course, none of us want to admit that we get to that place, but we all do, and we all have. And so if you're feeling yourself like stuck in rumination, go find something bigger than yourself that will make your jaw drop. That is my prescription for you right now. I've also talked a lot about Barbara Fredrickson's work before on this podcast and, on social media. So her broaden and build theory adds another really beautiful layer to all of this. She found that positive emotions don't just feel pleasant, although, of course, when we're feeling that positive emotion, it just feels good. But it does that. But then actually, those positive emotions expand our cognitive and our emotional range, which is just amazing. I think if you were to stop and like analyze the last time you felt like a really pleasant emotion, like you were really happy or you were excited or whatever, your ability to think of creative ideas and just your range broadens. And over time, as that becomes more just a part of your everyday living, those positive emotions build psychological resources. It's amazing. So you build up resiliency, creativity, and connection. So by sharing these things with you, I want to highlight that awe and beauty, while we can sometimes think of them as like, oh, these nice, like frivolous luxuries, they're really, in my mind, they can't be seen as distractions from real life. They're actually so integral to our life because they increase our capacity to live it well. And the last piece I wanted to highlight for you today is this idea of expressive processing and emotional integration. We have known for decades through expressive writing research that when people put emotional experience into words in a structured, reflective way, measurable changes occur in both physical and psychological health. I know this has been true for myself, and there's a reason why almost every single person I've ever worked with in my career has been encouraged by me at some point or another to use writing as part of their emotional processing or healing journey. Participants who wrote honestly about emotionally significant experiences for even like 15 to 20 minutes over the course of several days, let's say, showed improvements in, get this, immune function, reduced stress markers, and greater emotional integration. So if you're going through a hard time, maybe you're dealing with health stuff, maybe you're dealing with work stress or like financial stressors, all of those stressors we know impact our immune system, right? Right. There's a reason why when people go through a really stressful year, we actually have an inventory where someone checks all the life stressors in a given year. And if you score above a certain number, I can't remember what it is, and even positive life stressors like having a baby or moving into a new home, it could be your dream home. It could be a really positive thing. It's still a life stressor. And those people tend to get sick at a higher likelihood the following year. So it's because our immune system gets impacted. However, if you write your emotions out, it doesn't have to be hours. It doesn't have to be, complicated. Like you're literally just getting your emotions out on paper and you're writing about it. Give yourself 15 minutes a day. It's going to have such an impact, not just on your emotions, but on your physiology. It's so amazing. And what this tells us is that creativity organizes emotion. It gives form to what can feel really chaotic. And for many gifted women, you may be one of these people, your depth, your emotional depth, your sensitivity runs very deep. But when that depth isn't expressed, it can turn inward. And that can become rumination. It can become overthinking. It can become almost like obsessive compulsive behaviors. It becomes anxiety, right? And we can feel really stuck in our own heads. Creative expression allows that intensity to move and get out of our bodies, like literally get out of our bodies instead of stagnate. It's so powerful. So if we step back and we look at all of this together, I want you to see this pattern that emerges. Creative expression lowers stress hormones. Awe increases physiological flexibility. Emotional disclosure and narration improves integration. And cultural engagement even correlates with longevity. Art, my friend, is not ornamental. It's not frivolous. It's not luxury. It's literally regulating our systems. And this really, really, really matters, especially for us gifted women, for gifted individuals, highly sensitive people of whatever label you want to put on us. It's so important because we're going to have all of these feelings inside, all of this energy inside. And one really effective way to get it out of ourselves is through art and creativity. Many of us were creative girls who became highly efficient adults. It's sad, right? It's so sad, but it's true. Like we got praised and we learned in all of our cultural training to become highly efficient, not necessarily creative. Now, some of you may be thinking, oh, thank God I escaped that trap and I'm very creative. Yay. That's so good. I encourage you to share your creative processes with the people all around you because the world needs more of that. Everyone needs to be able to find what works for them. Not everyone's going to be a painter and not everyone's going to, be a visual artist per se. I tend to discharge a lot of mine through music and singing. Not everyone's going to do it that way, but you have to find what works for you. Because somewhere along the way, if you are listening this today and you're like, yeah, I don't really feel like I have creativity or art, woven into my day-to-day life, it's because somewhere along the way, we stopped making things for the sake of play and aliveness. We got overly focused on producing and performing and being competent and all of those other things that we just stopped creating, or it just became, like last on the list. And over time, that narrowing of focus and of that narrowing of creation can feel like this quiet disenchantment with life, this disconnection. And we probably aren't even fully aware of that underlying some of our dullness, I guess I might call it in life. So here is your invitation for this week. This week, I don't want you to consume more. I want you to create something. And if you're not in the habit, I have to remind myself the same thing, you guys. I am not speaking like I've got this all figured out. I know for me, when I create anything, when I say create something, I'm talking like sing a song in the car or the shower if it's, first thing in the morning. Now, singing may not be your thing, right? And you may not have the luxury necessarily of having time in your morning to sit down and paint a picture. So you have to think of this creating something in a really flexible way. But I want you to focus this week on creating before consuming, or at least over the course of your day and week. Notice how much are you creating versus consuming. So some ideas, like I said, sing in the car. I definitely like singing in the car. I also like singing in my shower. And to be honest, as soon as my husband goes off to work, because I work from home, I'm able to sing. If I'm not on a call, I am singing. In fact, here's a side note. When I was writing my dissertation many years ago, it was such a daunting project for me because I am not, I don't think of myself as someone who finds the writing process to be smooth and easy. So it was very daunting I think my dissertation was over 300 pages by the end of it. It was a huge project. You're writing a book. And, my father-in-law, who's a musician and a singer, he said to me, he goes, because he also had worked on a dissertation, so we're similar. He said, the key for you is going to be singing through it, singing through it all. And I would have never thought to use that strategy because it doesn't seem like, if you buy a book on how to write your dissertation, I don't think singing is the top of the list of strategies to use, but I literally did that. I mean, when I say I did that, I woke up, I sang. Whenever I started feeling stuck, I would take a break and sing. I was just singing through the whole thing. Okay, enough on the singing. If you're a singer, just sing your heart out. Maybe for some of you, it's going to be this week rearranging a little corner of your home. Maybe you need to create 10 minutes in your day today and write honestly about your emotions, about what you're thinking, what's going on, how are you feeling about it all. 10 minutes. Maybe you visit a museum. And if you can't visit a museum, maybe you walk outside somewhere and you just stand still long enough to let something beautiful interrupt you. Healing doesn't always begin with insight, right? Sometimes it begins with beauty and art. And if you didn't get this message yet, hear it now. Your creativity is not indulgent. It is essential. It's essential. There are so many positive benefits. And the research, you guys, I scraped the surface. So just trust me when I tell you, there's so many benefits. So I hoped this sparked some ideas for you as you go about your week. This week, just carve out a little time, be intentional, and see where it takes you. I will see you right back here next week. And until then, keep flourishing. Thank you for listening to the Power to Flourish podcast. I hope today's conversation left you feeling more seen, more supported, and more deeply connected to yourself. And if this episode resonated, would you take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a friend? It's one of the best ways to help this work reach the women who need it most. You'll find show notes, links, and resources from today's episode at powertoflourish.com. And now just a quick reminder, this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It's not therapy, medical advice, or a substitute for professional support. And listening doesn't make me your therapist or doctor, though if you're looking for a coach, you know where to find me. All right, beautiful one, that's it for now. Until next time, trust yourself, honor your gifts, and keep flourishing.